Welcome back to another episode of the Unblock Your BS podcast. Today, I had a voice message sent in from one of our listeners who wanted to talk about forgiveness with her husband and how does she move forward with it. So, I'm going to play that audio for you real quick, and then we will dive into my thoughts and takes on what she had to share.
Hi, Tara. So, my name is Brittany. I am a 33-year-old mom. I have been married since 2014, so going on 11 years this year. And I found you on TikTok. I just listened to your first podcast, so I wanted to send you a voicemail quick. I actually filed for divorce in 2020 and then called it off, and have been with my husband since, I might add, very unhappily, and I just haven't been able to navigate why I'm unhappy necessarily. Like, I know that there's a lot of past traumas in our relationships, in our relationship, and there's been a lot of, I guess, unforgiveness with myself. I've had a lot of childhood trauma coming up. He had a pretty bad alcohol and anger problem, and we worked through a lot of that, but I'm just feeling very stuck and like I can't forgive him for all of our previous experiences together that he robbed me of. And I'm just not knowing how to navigate this and move forward. In the process, I have developed an autoimmune disorder. I have stage 4 endometriosis, and I'm just a mess. I think I'm about to run out of time. So I'm going to stop it right there. I'm going to send this, and I hope to hear from you.
Brittany, thank you so much for sharing so openly and vulnerably. And I know it's a real quick message. I think it only allows you to record 90 seconds, and she got a lot of information in there. So, the main things that stand out to me is when you have a relationship that is going in a direction you don't want it to go, and you even get to the point of wanting to file divorce. And to her point, she filed divorce and then um, stopped the process. Going forward with your marriage, assuming that you're gonna try and salvage something out of a toxic or unhealthy partnership that you've had, to me, I don't see that working. What I have seen work and what has a more potential to work, because I really truly believe that all relationships can work when both parties are willing to recognize, take accountability for the fact that you both fucked up this relationship, because it takes two to make a relationship not function. Um, and recognize that what you created is done, it's dead, it doesn't exist anymore. You have to let the previous relationship go and start to create something new. Not, let's see if we can repair this, let's see if we can find our way through this. No, that is dead and gone. It cannot move forward. And this is where she may be stuck, even forgiving herself and forgiving her partner, because you're trying to take what didn't work and plug it into a future that that relationship can't go forward with. You have to kill off that relationship and start fresh. And I love Dr. John Deloney. If you guys haven't listened to his podcast, it's fantastic. I love his approach to this because he says you sit down at a table and you guys draw a line in the sand and you say, we cannot move forward with this past relationship. That's got to go. What it's going to take is for two people to put their egos aside and the patterns and the cycles that you've gotten into that got you to the point of a relationship not working, both of you individually have to go heal those parts of you that created that relationship. And then both of you need to work together to co create something new, right? That means putting your ego aside means I'm not right or wrong. You're not right or wrong. Neither one of us are right or wrong. Even though you may have had past traumas, even though you may have a history of shit, right? Even though you have a lot of evidence of the history of it not working out well. If you cannot let that go, then you don't have a future with this person. You don't. I'll give you the example of what I needed to do and what was so heavy for me and so hard, but so freeing once I finally did it with my ex-husband was in our parenting dynamic. It was not functional. It was just, I don't want to get into details, but I did not respect him as a parent for a very long time. And we had a real like boiling point last year around Christmas time where I just got fed up with fighting with him and arguing with him and everything escalating because I'm not one for conflict. I'll have conflict, but I don't enjoy it. It was creating a lot of chaos in my life and in my body. So it doesn't surprise me that she's having autoimmune issues and she's having a lot of physical manifestations of her emotional unhappiness. Our body stores that energy, our nervous system stores that energy, and it starts to manifest in all sorts of different dysfunctional ways in your body if it's not getting expressed and released. And so I had this moment. It was actually with my longtime coach. I don't even think he was speaking directly to me, but I took it as if he was speaking directly to me, of carrying this weighted backpack around of all of these stories you keep telling yourself about a situation or a person. So to Brittany's example, she is having a hard time, like she said, where he robbed me of certain experiences. So those are stories that she's carrying around in a backpack as if they were boulders, right? Big giant boulders of these stories she's carrying around that he robbed her of a vision, an expectation, a dream, a hope that she had had. And that seems to be the stumbling point of her being able to move forward, is that she is carrying these stories of the past. I'm not saying that that didn't hurt. And I'm not saying that he just deserves blanketed trust. But if you guys have both agreed to that you want to move forward in life, you got to put the backpack down. And we do this inside of the breathwork sessions inside of the self-aware army quite frequently, where we'll have the visualization of this backpack of all of these stories you're telling yourself. If you are not currently actively experiencing a situation, then every memory you have from the past is a story you're telling yourself. I'm not saying those memories didn't happen, but the fact that they are continuing to live inside you and still affect who you are in present day means they're a story in your head. And chances are it's the emotion of that event or that memory that is causing you the most suffering. Therefore, you are not healing it. You are not moving forward with it. You are actively still going back into the emotion and the pain and the hurt of the past. And this is what is conceptually so hard for people, is it is a choice to continue to carry that backpack. And for those of you that continue to carry this backpack of all these memories of these past hurts, every time your partner does something that hurts you just even in the little bit or hurts your feelings, you add more rocks to that backpack. Because you're like, "Oh, yep, there's another piece of evidence that they're a shitty person, or there's a piece of evidence that he can't be trusted." If you choose, both of you choose to move forward, you cannot continue to operate that way. You are looking for evidence to get out of this, right? Your brain will identify evidence to match your beliefs. So if you believe he is not a safe person, you will continue to find evidence of this. Whereas you can choose to let those stories go and put the backpack down. That is as simple as it is a choice. I know you want like the 17 different overcomplicated steps of how to let go of the past and move forward into the future. It is literally just a choice. So for me and my scenario with my ex-husband, I had the awareness that if I continue to look at him as the version of the dad he was in the past, I will never allow him to be what he could be. I will never allow him to prove to me that he's any different. And if I want him to be an amazing dad and I want to see him as an amazing dad, I've got to stop looking for evidence of the opposite. And I had a massive breakdown, just like an emotional, cathartic sob when I had this backpack analogy shared with me where I visualized myself, especially during a breathwork session, I visualized myself dropping a backpack and just the weight being lifted. And it took me about a week or two after that um, to settle into that. I'm going to start building new trust with him. I'm going to stop looking for evidence of all the ways in which I think he's a terrible parent. And I'm going to stop that kind of that neural pathway that he's not safe. And sure enough, what do you know? We're over a year past that point, and he is the best dad he's ever been. Whether I'm seeing him in a different light or he's performing in a different light or he's stepping up and whatever, I don't care. I don't care what the cause effect was. I care that he is a great dad now. And I like even the words coming out of my mouth, I laugh because I never thought it was possible. I thought I'm going to have to struggle through for the next, 18 years of my kids' lives to get to where I don't have to like co-parent with this. And we are certainly not perfect and we are certainly not like always on the same page, but we have worked very hard to communicate much better, to be a little bit more open and vulnerable about our parenting of the kids. And he has done a great, great job over the last year. we would not be in this situation had I stuck to the belief and the memories and carried that backpack of rocks of all the ways in which he had hurt me, he'd hurt the kids, all that kind of stuff. If I had carried that into the future, he would still be that person to me. So, Brittany, my advice to you and anybody else that's listening is ask yourself, how is it protecting you to carry all of those memories around and all of that stress and all of that anger? And do you want to continue to choose to carry it around? If you want to move forward with your husband and you want to stay married, there is a very strong likelihood that those memories cannot come into the future with you. And if you're unwilling to choose to let them go, then your choice is probably best to let you both move forward and heal from it instead of making him pay and be punished for something that he may never own or that he has already owned, but it hasn't been good enough because nothing he could do could be good enough. Um, Punishing someone after they've taken accountability and responsibility, that's not fair. That's pretty immature and childish. Not saying you're immature and childish, but it's an inner child version of you wanting justice if he hasn't taken accountability for it, and that's why you're holding on to it because you're worried that the pattern's gonna happen in the future. That's something to address with him and that how important that is for you as the terms of moving forward. You guys can both sit down and say, here's what we need individually to move forward and map that out. What is the roadmap to getting connected and having a beautiful partnership moving forward? Right? Kill off the old relationship. Okay, what are we going to create now? Okay, if I'm going to forgive you for everything and I'm going to leave it in the past and I'm going to reconcile within myself that I forgive myself for the decisions I made, I forgive you for the decisions I made, and now we're going to pretend like we're just going to move forward with new people in this present moment. Okay, not even pretend, like that's what you're integrating, that's what you're owning. And anytime conversations, well, you remember back in 2016 when you do this? No, no, no. The terms of engagement are we don't bring that stuff anymore. We are going to put a pin in it. It's dead. We have owned it, we have apologized for it, we've grown from it, we've learned from it, now we can be stronger for it, okay? We don't need to keep go revisiting the past. If you keep revisiting the past, clearly there's something unhealed, unspoken, and unmet need that needs to be addressed. Now, whether that's between the 2 of you or that's your childhood stuff coming up. Now, the part where both of you individually need to be doing the healing work on your past stuff is because you brought that past stuff into the current relationship. We all do that. But now you see the consequences of that and how destructive it can be to connection. Because here's the thing, y'all. When you get married or decide to be in a long term partnership with someone, you are choosing that person. You're choosing that person to do life with. And it's very common as you get down long-term marriages, especially when you throw in kids to the mix or, there's traumatic events, your marriage is going to go through life. And about every 10 years going to have some significant event that's going to shake up your marriage or your relationship. It's inevitable. That is life. And instead of coming together, you grow apart or, it is a disconnect. My mom always said, me and your dad always, we got into our ruts that were apart and we had to like work to bring our ruts together and be aligned again. And that just kind of on and off kept happening. And they've been married almost 50 years. So there's got to be something to that. Um, so it is vulnerability is the path to connection. Like, not projecting your stuff onto somebody else, not making them responsible for how you feel. Yes, their actions have an impact on you, and it's your duty to communicate the impact it has, and it's their duty to listen. You guys may not have the relationship skills to get through this, and that's fine. Go learn those skills. Learn how to communicate vulnerably. Learn how to hold space for your partner without making them wrong or without taking responsibility that they're angry at you and that you have to be defensive about it. There are very common, kind of indicators of divorce based on the Gottman Institute. They have a book called The 7 Principles of some kind of marriage, can't remember the exact title, but they talk about the things like stonewalling. They call them the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Stonewalling, defensiveness, and there's a couple of other in there. But if you have those in your marriage, those things need to stop because they block vulnerability. And where connection comes in is vulnerability. Meaning that you go up to your partner and you say, I'm having a really hard time letting go of XYZ thing in the past. I feel like I was robbed of this opportunity because of your drinking or because of your anger. I feel like I have a hard time trusting you and coming to you with my feelings because of the past where you've gotten angry. And if he starts getting defensive and da da da, well, you did this and that, no, 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 no. Let me speak and share my truth because it's important for us to connect over this. If you can't hear me right now, I totally understand that, but I need a time when I can communicate because if I can't communicate with you, we have no relationship. So you get to make a choice on whether you want a relationship with me or not, in which case we do need to have these open and vulnerable conversations where you can actually hear me. I had this conversation with my ex the other week. We were talking about some past stuff, and he was getting defensive in some of the things that I was sharing. That was just my journey. And granted, we're way out of a relationship. He's moved on to a relationship. Part of it, I just wanted to share about some new awarenesses I had had about our marriage. And we're sitting at a soccer game, so it probably wasn't the best time to talk about this. But I was sharing, and he was getting defensive, and I was like, he just can't hear me. He like straight up cannot hear. He is so conditioned to get defensive and protect himself that he is missing what I'm saying. And I think that happened quite a bit in our marriage. Like he was just so sensitive to any sort of feedback on how he might have hurt me that we couldn't actually address the patterns that were being created of me getting hurt. And that's why I stopped advocating for myself. And I didn't know how to say pause and say, like, hey, no, hear me. I'm communicating something really important to you. Right? And this is how we get out of this. So, to some extent, Brittany, I first and foremost focus on your health. Like, if that is something that makes it really hard for you to be vulnerable or just adds an added layer of stress, it's okay to pause on the relationship and just say, hey, in this season, I really need to focus on my health and working through your own childhood stuff too, because that directly impacts how we connect with other people. I'm not all of the 100% of the time when I get on calls with clients, we always go back to childhood stuff. Even if they had a fairly healthy, great childhood, they can't think of any trauma, it always leads back to either their relationship with one or both parents or the relationship they saw with their parents or the relationship their parents had with other people. All of that as children, we soak up like a sponge, and then we mimic it, and we look to heal our inner child wounds from those attachment issues with our adult relationships. 100% of the time, that's what's happening. So, Brady, my advice to you and my care for you moving forward is first and foremost, your health, mental and physical, is top priority. And if you guys are in a season where you can kind of just maintain and come to some sort of agreement that we're not going to tackle these bigger issues until your health is at a tolerable level, that's okay too. Or if you guys need to separate for a season so you can focus on your health so that you don't have to worry about the relationship stuff too, it's okay to advocate for that too. There's quite a few women in my coaching programs that we've guided them through taking a season of separation where they want the marriage to work, but it feels like a pressure cooker when they're all living in the same house and it's just like a constantly being triggered. It's okay to take a month or two or however long you need as a separation, and I know a lot of times when the other partner is hearing that, they're thinking it's the end. And I'm like, well, you guys can stay in the pressure cooker and it will most definitely end. Or you can do a Hail Mary trying to salvage the relationship by giving yourself both some space for the emotions to come down and for logic to kick in on how you fix this moving forward or how you get out of this permanently and not have it be an emotional decision. It can be a logical decision once you're out of the pressure cooker. But staying in the pressure cooker only means that everybody's going to get burned in it. So, what is it that you need, Brittany, and those of you who are listening that can resonate with this to take the next right step for you, right? Where you can start to heal you with or without the relationship, because you're going to take you wherever you go. And so, looking back at your contribution, since you're the one listening to this episode, your contribution to the outcomes of the relationships that you've had or that you're currently in, taking 100% radical responsibility of where you may have not advocated for yourself, where you settled for less than you deserve, for holding on to stories in the past, for carrying the backpack around. I mean, if you want a good visualization, again, I'm going to refer to Dr. John Deloney on this. He says, go get one of those cinder blocks and get 2 of them and just walk circles in your yard holding onto those cinder blocks. Those are the stories you're carrying around until you just can't carry them around anymore, then drop them and walk away from them. It's a really powerful visualization of the memories, the stories that you're carrying around and how heavy those are and how exhausting they are on your body. So, good challenge for you to kind of, if you're ready to let those stories go get some cinder blocks, walk around your yard until you can't do it anymore and let it go and go, I'm done. So what that looks like in practicality, because I know it sounds so easy, like, "Just let it go, let the stories go," is anytime a thought comes in that's the past story, right? So your husband does something and it triggers the thought to go, "There he is again doing whatever," or, "Oh my god, he's drinking again," is, "Oh, there's that story again. I'm gonna pause. I'm not going to let that story drive an emotional response right now. I'm going to choose a different viewpoint right now." So now again, physical safety or physical safety is not okay, or if they're being abusive and toxic, this is not justifying that behavior. I'm talking about people who are consciously making a choice to move forward in a relationship and stop carrying the past into the future. Choose the thought you want to believe. The more power you have over your thoughts, which you can have power, and it is practice to learn, you're going to have triggers from your environment and from your past and all that that are going to bring a thought across your awareness. And most people are not self aware enough to know that thought is only just a response to a stimuli. It doesn't have to mean anything. You are the one that puts meaning on it. So if you don't like the stories that you're telling yourself, start changing those stories and start telling yourself a new story. So if your husband is starting to drink, instead of going, "There he goes again, I can't believe he's doing it," going, "Wow, something must be really bothering him. He's using alcohol to numb out something. He must really be struggling with something that he doesn't know how to handle. How can I show up for him right now? Hey, honey, do you want to talk about anything? I noticed you're drinking. Are you stressed out? What can I do to love you best today? You can stay the fuck out of my way." Okay, I'll give you some space. Next time, please don't cuss at me, but I will absolutely give you space when you ask for it. I want to lead with kindness here, right? Um, Again, there's always a different way to look at something. You can hate somebody so passionately in the world and yet somebody else loves them, right? That is a perspective shift. That one person who is an awful, terrible human being has somebody else that probably loves them, right? Or that their coworkers think that they're great, or their college buddies or their military buddies thought they were the most amazing person in the world, yet they're so toxic to you. There's always a different way to look at somebody, and that is not to justify poor treatment. It is you taking agency and ownership over how you perceive the world, how you perceive the people in it, and start to tell yourself a story, since it's all made up anyways, that gets you closer to the outcome you want. Okay. So if you desire to stay with your partner, having all of these stories go through your head of how awful, horrible of a human being they are, and that you just need to cave and cater to them because you signed up for it, that doesn't sound like it's a healthy perspective, and that sounds like a lot of your stories are gonna be self-abandoning. Whereas you can start to tell yourself different stories of like, "Wow, I really love him. That's why I'm sticking around. I wonder how I can love him better today." If the story is you need to get out of this, but you keep telling yourself that divorce goes against your religion or your parents or what is society gonna think or it's too hard or I can't afford it, those are all stories. They're all problems to solve for. They're easily solved. Right, simply solved, maybe not easy to solve, but simply solved. I get a lot of people say, "I can't financially leave because of divorce." Okay, sounds like you need to get a job. "My husband won't let me get a job." Well, then you definitely need to get a divorce because he's controlling you. You should be able to go get a job, right? And you can go talk to an attorney and see what alimony looks like if you haven't been working the last 20 years. And what is the roadmap out? Just because you can't financially afford it now doesn't mean that that is forever. And that doesn't mean that you have to stay in a really unhealthy, toxic relationship. Right? There's always a path towards what you want. The stories you tell yourself is what means that you stay stuck. So if you don't like the path that you're heading down, what thoughts are you thinking? What stories are you telling yourself about the future, about the past? And know that they are just stories. Because the reality is, in this present moment, what's true? You're probably sitting in your car or in your house listening to this or watching this on your phone. What's true for you? In this moment, not based on the past, not based on the future. Okay. So right now you can choose to be happy. You can choose to be stressed. You can choose to be sad. You can choose to be angry. You can choose to laugh. You can choose to be a silly goose. All a choice. So what do you choose? All right. If you want to leave a voice message to then be featured on the podcast, or you want to come on and get coached on the podcast, we are always looking for guests to come on and share real life stories and get, some truth and some answers and some coaching. You can head on over to unblockyourbs.com/podcast and leave me a voice message. You can also share just what episodes impacted you or anything that has resonated with you the most. I am a words of affirmation girly, so I always love the positive feedback. So if you ever want to be on the episode, please feel free to go to unblockyourbs.com/podcast, and you can leave a voice note or a message there for me, and we will reach out to you and have you on the episode. All right, until next time, have a good one.